It's Monday, and that so happens to be the day that I like to talk about monsters. Hi, everybody, I'm Geoff Arbuckle, and this is Monster Mondays, presented to you by Film Seizure. You can catch new episodes of Film Seizure with myself and Jason Oliver on Wednesdays, but Mondays, well, they're for me to talk about monster movies. You know what I enjoy? Well, yeah, monster movies, duh. But you know what else? Animation. I grew up on so many cartoons that I even, thanks to shows like The Simpsons, Bob's Burgers, and Adult Swim as a whole, I even still get a big kick out of watching cartoons. Also, I'm not sure if we live in the golden or silver or bronze age of animation, but damn if we don't have animation coming out our asses to choose from. We've got traditional animation, we have claymation, we have animation from other countries, particularly Japan. We've got animation everywhere we cast our gaze. So that got me thinking, why not do a whole month of animated movies for Monster Mondays? Yeah, for as long as there's been animation, there have been monsters in animation. Go on to YouTube and search for old school cartoons and you'll find all sorts of scary creatures and spooky happenings. Shit, you will even find Bela Lugosi as Dracula trying to seduce Betty Boop. That one isn't animated, nor is it internet porn, but it's a real thing that exists out there, and it's a fun little thing to watch. For the month of August, I've got cartoons to talk about. I've got something from Japan's reigning king of animated features. I've got a character I've already talked about twice who also got himself a couple of animated features. I've got a modern spooky tale with classic monsters created by a big-time name in animation. But it all kicks off with the big motherfucker of animation studios for the past near 25 years, Pixar, and their movie that's so fitting of Monster Mondays that it has the word monsters in the title. Now, Pixar has mostly taken over Disney in a lot of different ways. First, most Disney animated features are now done in the computer-generated styles that were perfected by Pixar, which is now a subsidiary of Disney's. And why not, right? Most Pixar movies will have competitive or better grosses than Disney's in-house stuff. That's because Pixar has so very, very few movies that aren't hits with critics. Almost all of their movies are hits with children and families. Pixar's beginnings are kind of humble, but go deep with lots of big names and big companies attached to their company and members of their original team. These names would be little things like, Lucasfilm, Atari, Chuck E. Cheese, and Showbiz Pizza, Disney, and by the way, they've been associated with Disney a couple of times over before they finally became part of the House of Mouse in 2006. And co-founder of Microsoft, Paul Allen, was associated with them for a little while too. It seemed like Pixar was destined for great things from the very beginning. Their first film was Toy Story in late 1995. It was a massive hit and really a cultural phenomenon. Their next film, A Bug's Life, was a modest hit, but hampered a little bit by a rival film called Ants that was released around the same time. The funny thing is, it seems that many are kind of split on A Bug's Life. Those who like it seem to really like it. But those who are indifferent towards it or only thought of it as okay almost nearly forget that the movie even exists. Their third film, Toy Story 2, would follow, but their fourth film is the one we're here to talk about this week, 2001's Monsters, Inc. This movie has a fairly simple but nonetheless brilliant plot. Monsters, Inc. is a company that matches monsters to kids. You know, when you were little, you were always kind of afraid and scared of what was under the bed or lurking in the closet. Well, in this world, these things are real. The monster world is connected to children's closets. The monster world is powered by children's screams. So they send monsters into little kids' rooms and scare them so that they can scream, and the monster would bring back that power so that the world that they live in can keep the lights on. However, the twist here is that the monsters are just as scared of kids, just as much as kids are scared of them. Now, the best scarer in all of the monster world is James Sullivan, or Sully for short. And he's played by John Goodman. His best friend and roommate, and also the little technician that works with him when he goes on his scaring trips, is Mike Wazowski, played by Billy Crystal. Sully is a big, horned, hairy creature, while Mike is a short little globular cyclops. There are a couple of subplots that our main heroes have to look out for. First, there's a rival monster to Sully named Randall, who is also going for a scare record that Sully is closing in on. And he'll do whatever it takes to get that record, including cheat. Second, because kids are getting harder to scare, the monster world is essentially in an energy crisis. Third, it's really thought of as bad news for monsters to bring anything from our world to theirs, or for children to touch them or cross over into their world. It's basically treated as a contamination threat. And working late one night, Sully realizes that one of the doors leading to our world was not put away properly, and soon finds himself face to face with a little girl who thinks he's a big fluffy kitty that she wants to play with. Now, while Sully really starts to like the girl, and Sully, by the way, has named her Boo, Mike is anxious to get her back to our world. Meanwhile, Sully's rival, Randall, has a new device to revolutionize the scaring business, and he's called it the Scream Extractor. This basically forces a kidnapped or restrained kid to scream. As Sully and Mike reveals Randall's plan to their boss Waternoose, it's revealed that he is on the plan as well, and banishes both of them to the Himalayas, where they meet another banished monster and great scarer, the Abominable Snowman. Sully is ultimately determined to get back by accessing the monster world through a kid's closet in a village in Tibet. He gets back just in time to save Boo from Randall and Waternoose, and after a wonderful little chase scene brilliantly animated through like this library of doors on the mechanical track to the warehouse where they're all kept and stored, they defeat Randall and Waternoose by tricking them to reveal the big plan to an agency that protects the monster world from children. They get Boo home, but her closet door is shredded because she's no longer scared of monsters, and also to make sure that she doesn't get back into the monster world itself. When everyone thinks that Monster Inc. will be shut down, Sully realizes how much more power they get from the children's laughter as opposed to their screams. Now, instead of scarers like Sully going into the world to gather up power for their world, now the little partner monsters like Mike are now the real stars of the company. Mike reveals that he's also rebuilt Boo's shredded door that allows Sully to see her once more. Now, before I get into my 3 things that I like about this movie, I just have to say that in general, this movie is very, very good. There was a sequel many years later that followed Sully and Mike in their college days, but admittedly, I don't see too many Pixar movies, so I didn't see that sequel. But this is one of those movies that it's just really perfect if you only watch this one film. Not meaning to dump on the sequel or prequel, if you want to call it that, but just because I like this movie so much, I'm not really in a big hurry to see that one, which was called Monsters University. Though, who knows, maybe someday I'll cover it for this show. So let's get into my 3 things that I like about this movie. First and foremost, there is not a mean bone in this movie's monster body. Lots of kids' movies are becoming much more cynical and just being cranked out by studios that just want their parents' dollars. Sometimes the movies have to resort to overly frenetic tones or action that is basically just mind-numbing. Other times they go for more crude humor that may be funny, but often are just kind of forgettable and dumb, and sometimes comes across almost mean-spirited too. This movie goes for a higher brow of just having these silly concepts taken seriously with well-developed characters and simple ideas that just simply work. Second, the design of the monsters are great. If you're like me, you have a big imagination. These monsters will just definitely make you giggle. There are lots of eyes, sometimes cyclops, sometimes no eyes at all. Some monsters are big, small, enormous. They don't always go for the low-hanging fruit of spiders or werewolves or vampires or what have you. These are almost like children's drawings come to life with wild colors and wild shapes of bodies. Whenever I see a character with a bunch of tentacles for arms just flapping about on one of these guys, it's just the best. What's more is that not a single one of these monsters are actually all that scary. They're almost cute, but mostly in that ugly way. And they're hairy or slimy and just generally funny looking. It makes sense that they're switching from scaring kids to making them laugh. And I'm sure there was a conscious thought behind not making anything so scary that it would frighten the child in the audience. But I also say everything, no matter how unique each thing is, looks like it belongs in this world. Finally, this movie is fairly good at giving thrills as well as laughs. There are some legitimately great chase scenes and action set pieces. Everything from Randall, who is this multi-legged lizard thing slithering around and being able to blend in with his surroundings to the point that he actually goes invisible, to the scenes in which they are trying to avoid the child detection agency, to all the times that Mike and Sully are running down hallways. It's not just keeping this movie moving at a particularly brisk pace, but it's also keeping us at the edge of our seats. It's just a really fun movie to watch. However, the scene that really takes the cake in terms of thrilling is the long sequence in which Sully and Mike are trying to find Boo's closet door while trying to evade Randall. It starts off simple enough with them hopping onto the door and riding it along the track like you'd see in a dry cleaner's place, only for it to reveal that, oh yeah, there are likely hundreds of millions of children's doors in the world. So they are flung into this dizzying sequence, kind of akin to riding a roller coaster. Even 18 years after its release, it's an impressively animated sequence. That wraps up this week's Monster Mondays. Until next week, I'll see you later, and don't forget to check out new episodes of Film Seizure each and every Wednesday, and a new installment of Monster Mondays each Monday on filmseizure.com, as well as check out new posts at my website, bmovieenema.com, each Friday morning.